Have you ever picked up butter from the store and come back and realized it was the wrong shape? And it did not fit your butter dish and it was not what you expected. This happened to me when I first moved from Dallas and moved to Arizona. I had grown up with this size butter, which I thought was just everybody had this butter in the US. And suddenly everybody was selling these and it was hard to find these. I never thought a whole lot of it. I just thought maybe butter shapes were changing until I started designing a 3D printed butter dish. Now, I needed a butter dish for my house. I like to have butter on the counter, which, by the way, you can have butter out on your counter safely for about 3 to 4 weeks. It's nice having soft butter for potato, bread, toast, whatever. So I wanted a butter dish, and I looked all over the internet, and nothing I found was very good. So I thought, well, I can design, one of these things. I just started learning Fusion, a CAD program called Fusion this year. So I thought, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for this. So I created what I called the butter barn. Why is this unique? Well, it's not exactly splitting the atom, but what I like about it is that it has teaspoons on one side and cups divisions on the other. That way, if you're cooking or baking and your recipe calls for 3 tablespoons, you can just cut it. Of course, that's on the label of the butter, but you're going to throw that wrapper away when it's in here, and then you can't remember the dimensions if you're like me. So I put this out online and made it available for anybody to download and print themselves for free. I don't sell it or anything. And I had several people comment and say, hey, this doesn't fit my butter, even though in the description I specified this is only for this size of butter. So I think it was inevitable that I was going to have to create another butter barn for the East Coast size of butter. This is the one I'm using right now on my counter. That butter looks a little funky, but it's actually just fine. So I made one for the East Coast. Well, while I was doing this, I realized I had made a major mistake. In my original design for the butter barn, I have the cup dimensions over here, and I say this is a half a cup right here. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, wait a second, is that right? And so after doing one Google search, I realized that every stick of butter is a half a cup. So this should be a quarter, and that should be an eighth. So I redesigned the base of the butter barn and made it so this is a quarter, this is an eighth now, and that applies to both the sizes here. So let me show you a better one. Both sizes of these butter sticks are exactly the same amount. It's 4 ounces or 8 tablespoons. Here in the US, we love playing around in different units. Our milk is in gallons and our Coke is in liters. It doesn't make any sense. It's just the way we do it. And of course, we have to have 2 different sizes of butter in our country just to confuse the hell out of us. And for whatever reason, we cannot give up these standards.
So why do we have these 2 different sizes of butter? That's the real question of this video. It's because of the manufacturing of butter back in the early 1900s. The biggest dairy suppliers at the time were on the East Coast and then the Midwest. And the company that molded the butter and processed and packaged the butter, the biggest company was a company called Elgin out of Elgin, Illinois. And they created the standard size, that 4.8 inch size. Well, what happened is California got into the dairy business, and back in the 60s and 70s, they wanted to package their own butter and distribute butter from there. And they couldn't get a hold of the machinery from Elgin. There wasn't enough supply of that machinery. So they contracted out their machinery needs to other companies who ended up creating a different standard size. And to this day, we still have these 2 different sizes that are affectionately called Western Stubbies and Elgin East Coast butter. Most people just call it West Coast and East Coast sizes, and that's why.
It's the same exact volume as the West Coast butter stick, 8 tablespoons, also 4 ounces, or half a cup, but they are thicker to make up for the lack of length on here. And there's no real reason to have one or the other. It's just how you prefer it. This is a lot of different colors and shades. Of course, this is the East Coast. I've got 2 East Coast here and up here. It's the longer one, obviously. And the taller one is the West Coast. This one, this one, this one, this one. I've printed it out in different shades. And all of these are utilizing Bambu Lab's new wood PLA, which is just absolutely beautiful to me. I think it's got So much potential in so many other designs. I really love it. So this is the Butter Barn. I'm pretty proud of it. If this is something you'd like to download and check out, the link will be below. If you have access to a 3D printer or have a friend that has a 3D printer, I think you'd really like this. I think it works really great for buttering your toast and making your family happy. It's totally free. Enjoy.
Here's a couple tips on printing these out and some of the do's and don'ts that I would do. You'll notice when you first open this up in Bambu Studio that you're going to have this separated by the East Coast and West Coast butter. What's cool about this is you can print both pieces, the lid and the base, on one print pretty easily. So go ahead and choose one of your butter barns that you want to use. Let's say I want to use this one here, and I want this is my West Coast. I'd like to adapt it and modify it. So you're going to notice that I have in my Bambu lab, this is my X1C I'm using. I really, really love the PLA wood. I think it's the most beautiful of all the filaments currently. I love matte finishes. It's just my preference, especially for kitchen stuff. I think it looks really cool. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to select both of these items, and I'm going to change the general filament to that red, which is this one here. It's hard to see, but it's actually kind of a mahogany looking color. And you can see it didn't change the whole thing, and that's okay. We're going to just go to the paint tool and we're going to repaint it. We'll just grab this mahogany, and I'm going to crank up this height range and select the height range, and we're just going to paint the whole thing like that. So we make sure the whole thing looks like that. Make sure there's no other layer lines. I got to zoom in here. I hate the zoom feature in Bambu Lab. I'm used to Fusion. Okay, so now we're good. Now I want the top of it to be a different color, so we're going to choose, I'm going to go with this dark wood, I think. And I like to zoom in and find a place I can zoom in on. And again, I'm in the height range, and we're going to move this down a little bit. And I'm going to do that. So it just selects just that height. I like that. That's cool. And then I want to add a stripe on the side. You don't have to do this, but I like a stripe. I think it kind of looks cool. I like to do it right where it starts to curve and then bring it down a little bit too. Something like that. That's sharp. We'll go back to this, and now we're going to change our color on this. So we'll go to the paint tool. I'll go to this red. I'm going to crank up my layer height, the height range, and paint this whole thing. And then for this, you have a lot of different options on how you want to make those numbers or letters and text stick out. I'm going to try the fill option. Sometimes this has worked in the past. And I'm going to just click here. Oops. I'm going to choose a different color and just click here. And now it just painted the very top edge of this, and all the letters and stuff stick out. If you do that, you're going to have to fill in the little, anywhere there's one of the text items that has, that's enclosed, like a 6 or an 8 or anything like that. You're going to have to go in and just fill that in like that. There's a 4. And spin it over here. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It's however you want to do it. Okay, that looks good. Make sure that I got them all. All right, I like that. That's really nice. Now, a couple other things you'll notice about this is that, again, this is being printed by object instead of layer. So it'll print one of these before it'll switch over and print the other one. And that reduces a lot of layer. It reduces having to have the prime tower. I don't think you have to have that. And it saves filament, it saves time by doing it this way. So where that is in the global area on the Others tab, if you scroll down, there's this thing that says print sequence. You can do it either by layer or object. It's defaulted to layer, but if you do it by object, you'll have to spread these out, and it'll scream at you if these are too close, like that. You'll get this error. But if you spread them out enough, it'll make sure that the tool head can get around safely without interfering with the other one after it's been printed. It's a really cool feature they have. I didn't even know that was there for quite a while. You'll also notice that I'm on a 0.2 millimeter layer height. I think that that's a great layer height for this. And then the seam position's just aligned. You can put that wherever you want. Ironing. I really like the new ironing in Bambu Lab, the new version of Bambu Lab. I think this is 1.10. I put it on top surfaces and it makes a really wonderful flat surface on the top. Arachne, the wall generator, is great. And honestly, that's about it. That's all you need. Sometimes I get rid of this elephant foot. I find that never to be really helpful. It just makes this tiny little seam around the edge for securing it to the base, but I don't really feel like it's necessary. And sometimes I'll change the strength from a 15% infill to something a little heavier, just so that this doesn't cause any kind of leakage of the butter. Sometimes I'll put it at 100%. It just takes a while if you do that. So 30% gives us 4 hours right on the dot. I'm good with that. Let's go with 4 hours. Another thing I like to do, this already has variable layer lines, but I like to just check that. So I go back to prepare and I'll click this. And if you want a really, really great finish on the top, especially where this round part comes in, so you don't see a lot of layer lines, I would go to like 0.16 millimeter layer height or 0.12. Start with that. I'm going to go to 0.16. I'm going to keep all my values I changed. And then I'm going to select this and go to the variable layer height selection. And if you crank this all the way over to the left, click, see these layer lines that are going to be printed? We're going to change a little of that and then push this all the way to the right, hit smooth. It often gives you better layer lines. I'm not a master at this, so I may be doing this wrong, but you see that red there? I don't want that red, so we're going to crank that in one step and we're going to get rid of that. That's going to be a pretty great print right there. And we'll go to this and do the same thing. We'll hit this and we're going to hit this. It's going to make our very, very few layer lines on those curves. That's what we're trying to get rid of. So that should be a really, really great print. I'm going to go with that. And we're going to slice that. It might have added a little bit of time with the variable layer lines. Or maybe not. I don't remember. So 5 hours. Wow, it added quite a bit when we changed that. So about an hour and 45 minutes. But honestly, I'm okay with that. I want this one to be really nice. And so we're just going to go ahead and print that from there. We just go to print. And of course, we got to make sure our filaments are at the correct places. My printer is called Granny. My other one's Jethro. And I always like to bed level and do the flow dynamic calibration at the beginning, just for extra, especially if I have a print that's 5 hours long, I want everything to be perfect. I don't want any hiccups. That's not necessary, of course, but you can go ahead and print that. And that's how you do it. You can send that to the printer and away you go. It's coming out here. It looks like my print has been finished. I've actually got a light over here. By the way, if you don't have a light in your X1C, I recommend getting this adapter. This is just a ring light that you would buy on the cheap, and someone made a really great print. So look how beautiful that base is. I mean, that is just stunningly gorgeous. It's extremely smooth. I'm really impressed with the ironing now. All the letters are legible. This was really tricky, actually, to get the letters very, very small, but still be legible when they come out. So we got a third, a quarter, and an eighth in there. And then I've got my top. Now the lid on the very top isn't quite as good as some of my other ones, and I'm not really quite sure. I think the lighting is making it a little harsh, but because it's a matte finish, it's going to show every little detail. This seam, I might have next time put it in the back. Probably should have put it back here. It would have been a little less noticeable. Otherwise, it came out really, really good. Put that there. There's another butter bar. Now we've got another option. I really like, this is the first time I've used this sort of mahogany cherry kind of color. I'm impressed with that color. I want to use that for other things. But I think that came out, overall, it's pretty good. I'd give it a 95%. There's a little bit of ironing issues that happened in here. I'm not sure what happened. I may have to reprint that again, but that's not that big of a deal. This is definitely not a waste. This is definitely going to make a great gift for somebody at Christmas. All right, I hope that answers your questions on this stuff. Feel free to leave comments if you have any questions, and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it very, very much, every subscriber. Thanks, guys.